brain, when we believe we can do something, our brain treats that as if we've done it, and so gives a little uh, mini reward response as if it had achieved a goal, and that increases dopamine level.
Hey friends, welcome to Rugged. Young adulting is tough, and I'm here to show you how to make it easy. You'll learn mindset strategies to harness your thoughts and emotions in ways that help you achieve your goals. I'm your host, Trey Tucker, so let's dive right in. Today's episode is about getting you more confident. Dr. Ian Robertson is a psychologist and an expert in how to build confidence, and he's also going to show us the biological, physiological benefits of being confident. He's the author of the book, How Confidence Works, and the dude's got so much wisdom and knowledge. You're going to love it. Here we go. First of all, before we get into how to get it, because I think a lot of people confuse it with things like hype or self-esteem and other things.
Yeah. So I'll tell you what confidence is not first. It's not self-esteem. Self-esteem is your self-evaluation, and actually that can be as much a burden as it is a help, because
Hmm.
people spend an awful lot of their time trying to defend or protect their self-esteem, um, and it doesn't lead to. Uh, it doesn't really help. In some ways, it can be an obstacle. The second thing that confidence is not is optimism. Optimism is the sunny belief that things will turn out, but and while it makes people a bit healthier and happier to be optimistic, it doesn't really change the world.
Hmm.
So the secret sauce of confidence is linked to action. In the brain, it's linked to the brain's action systems, and it's the belief that you can do something. Now,
Hmm.
it's not a general purpose. I'm confident in everything. You be confident in some domains more than others, as I am. Some of us are confident socially, but not academically. Some of us are confident um, in our practical skills, but not in our academic skills, and so on. So it's categories of action that we believe we can do, and probably the most important category of action is interacting with other people, and that's where confidence has it's so powerful because of its effects on how other people perceive us, and
Hmm.
therefore in our likelihood of achieving what we want to achieve.
Hmm. All right. So if I'm tracking with you, it starts with a belief, an actual belief, and then that carries itself into the interactions that we have relationally. And then those interactions, if the confidence actually affects it, helps us achieve goals.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Trey. Um, Confidence is probably the most valuable commodity that someone can have.
Hmm.
We can talk about overconfidence um, later, but let's stick with the positives of confidence. That
Yeah.
Confidence works as a self-fulfilling prophecy
Hmm.
because it has five effects on our minds and our brains. Uh,
Hmm.
the first is confidence is the belief that we can do a thing, not with certainty. If we're certain we can do something, we don't need confidence. Okay,
Hmm.
so
Oh, that's good.
confidence bridges uncertainty, and the world there's all the future is inherently uncertain, and so uh, it, there's always going to be the risk that we've made the wrong decision or that what we want doesn't happen, and confidence allows us to handle the anxiety that that uncertainty produces and to take action in spite of the anxiety.
Hmm.
So, in our brain, when we believe we can do something, our brain treats that as if we've done it, and so gives a little uh, mini reward response as if it had achieved a goal, and that increases dopamine level, and so it's a mini antidepressant
Ooh.
because of it lifts dopamine. It's also has, and because of that, it also is a mini anti-anxiety drug. It lifts our mood a tiny bit, lowers our anxiety, and it increases our motivation. Because of the increased dopamine activity, it increases our motivation, and we're more likely to do the thing, to take action. The terrible thing about anxiety is it makes us avoid and not take action, and therefore we're cut off from the possibilities of reward that follows action.
Mm.
Uh, the fourth, the fourth thing that confidence does is to make us a tiny bit smarter. Why? Because the increased dopamine that's triggered by the confidence particularly affects the prefrontal cortex and so makes us a little bit mentally sharper. All of these things make it more likely that we will do the thing. And because we're sharper, because we're less depressed, and because we're less anxious, we're more likely to be successful. And so when we do the thing and get the success, we get the double whammy, we get that reward again. And that's why confidence is an exponential function like compound interest, that small successes build up via the mechanism called the winner effect, which is my previous book. But the fifth effect that confidence has is probably the most powerful, and that is it makes us more persuasive
Hmm.
and increases our status in the eyes of other people. So they listen to more likely to do what we ask them to. And that, of course, has feedback on us. Um, and of course, lack of confidence has all these effects negatively, if you like. Lack of
Hmm.
confidence lowers your mood, increases anxiety, makes you less likely to take action, deprives your brain of that little mental sharpening, and makes you less persuasive. So if you say something in a meeting, you want to say something, I think that we should do X, but you started off by saying, "Oh, probably what I'm going to saying is probably rubbish. Don't listen to me." But I wonder whether all these little prevarications, these self-defensive prevarications, what do? They sap your confidence in yourself, and they sap the other person's confidence in you, and therefore you get a negative downward effects of this lack of confidence. You mentioned the imposter syndrome earlier. Well, the imposter syndrome is some. We'll put it this way: I never want to have a boss who doesn't sometimes have the imposter syndrome, because what it's a sign of is healthy self-awareness, that you're not too much bought in to the story of how great you are.
Right.
that because confidence is about pushing the limits of what you can do, of not doing things you're certain you can do, but things you think you can do, but you're not 100% certain. Um, so, so imposter syndrome, because you're at that interface with uncertainty, of course, some of the times it feels, wow, not sure I can do this. Am I the right person for this? And as Marissa Mayer, the first woman CEO of a major tech company of Yahoo, said, it's about doing things before you feel quite ready. And that if you're doing things before you feel quite ready, that inevitably leads to feelings of being an imposter. And in reasonable doses, that's a healthy thing.
Hmm. So, okay, there's so many directions I want to go. First of all, you talked about that example of being in a meeting and prefacing what you're about to say with, "Well, this may not be right, but
Yeah,
what should someone do in the moment? Are there any practical tips right there in the moment? I want to get to the root of confidence first, but
yeah.
something really quick that somebody could adjust.
Well, first of all, they have to. This is probably a habit that they've done tens of thousands of times, so they may not even be aware they're doing it. So the first thing is you have to monitor yourself. First of all, just catch yourself doing it, and you may not be able to change it at first. But then at the next meeting, having realized that you do this, you then pinpoint when the high risk situations are that you're likely to do it, and you prepare yourself mentally by rehearsing and you the thing you want to say in the meeting or the thing you want to do, you bite your tongue and don't allow yourself to do the little defensive preparatory anxiety in the short term, anxiety reducing, but in the long term, anxiety increasing, self-defensive self-deprecations. And so
Hmm.
you have to bite your tongue and just say the thing and tolerate the anxiety that comes because you've said it without the defense.
Wow. Okay. That that phrase, of tolerating the anxiety, I had even when I first became a therapist, anxiety was still my biggest struggle, and I didn't know how to tolerate it. I thought it was the enemy, and
Yeah.
I would just work at it just to fight against it and to get rid of it, and that's the approach I took with my clients. And then I realized I was taking the totally wrong approach, the opposite approach that I should have been taking. So, how can somebody tolerate the anxiety in the moment in order to have their confidence come through.
Um, yeah, so anxiety, the dry mouth, beating heart, twisting stomach, um, these symptoms are identical in fear, anxiety, and anger. So it's the same physiology is
Mm,
happening to three totally different emotions. So how do we know what emotion we're having? We only know that what emotion we're having by the label we put on it. So we say you interpret the context, the label, I must be anxious, therefore these symptoms are anxious. This is an ancient theory called the James Lang theory of emotion. And
mm.
uh, so that means that we have the power to what these symptoms are that we tend to call anxiety is actually just our body and brain preparing for action.
Mm,
And our brain doesn't care whether that action is running away, fighting, or celebrating. Okay,
mm.
so so we can harness that energy if we perceive it as energy and don't get sucked up in it and say, "Wow, I that's an edgy feeling. Oh, there we go," and you say, "Wow, can I do this? Can I do this thing in spite of feeling like this? In fact, I'm going to choose to call this excitement." And kids love this, by the way. Kids love this to say, I am excited verbally to themselves when they feel these feelings. And
Huh.
it's possible to wrestle them in jujitsu, one emotion into another by the context, the words you put on it. And and so and that is the going from a threat mindset to a challenge mindset. And that changes the way your brain's functioning and makes it more able to do the uh, to, to to then engage in the habits of confidence, if you like, to increase your success. And once you get increased small successes, these will build to larger successes, and that will have very positive effects on your mood and anxiety.
So taking it from a threat response, you're labeling it as I'm not ready, I can't handle this, to well, no, I'm actually excited, I can handle this.
Yeah, and the words you say to yourself are critical in what the emotion ends up being. And the trouble is, when you're in a high state of arousal or anxiety, when your arousal is high like that, your brain you can't think clearly because there's too much norepinephrine in your brain, and so habits take over, habits of thinking and habits of behaving. So you have to just find ways of pulling the anxiety down with your breathing, relaxation, mindfulness, get the anxiety down, and then say to yourself, look, these feelings are my friend. This is a form of energy that I can harness. This is a challenge, not a threat. um, I wonder if I can do this in spite of these feelings. And if you then do it in spite of anxiety, that's a huge source of confidence. Doing something in
Mm,
spite of anxiety. Taking action is just critical in building confidence.
mm. All right, let's stay on that train. How do you build true confidence and establish that true belief? Because we know there's fake confidence and all that, but one of the things obviously is taking action in spite of anxiety. That proves to yourself that you can do hard things. What other tips are there to build true confidence?
There's no such thing as true confidence.
Oh,
Confidence is always fake at first.
ah,
The most confident appearing people may have done this thing so often that they now it's no longer a challenge for them. They appear confident, but they're working on habit or great success. But for most people, if you're interfacing with uncertainty in the future, there must always be the anxiety. And if there's some anxiety and uncertainty about whether you can do this thing, if you're properly challenging yourself, then um, then the first time you do the first time you say to yourself, "Ooh, I feel excited about this thing I'm not sure I can do. I think I can do it." These words will feel fake,
hmm,
as will your standing proud and tall rather than making yourself small. You want to make yourself small in a situation like that, but you stand tall, and that feels fake as well. And saying, "I think we should do X," and not, "This is maybe a silly idea, but." that will feel fake as well. All of these things will feel fake until you've done them 90, 100, 140 times. And only then does that element of confidence stop feeling fake.
Okay, that just blew my mind. When you said there's no such thing as true confidence, it shocked me for a second, but now that you say it, I get it because yeah, people who seem confident, they've just done it so many times that it's no longer a challenge for them. They just
No, it's
it's
not.
rote
It's
memory.
no longer working on confidence. They're working on the habits they have that confidence has developed, if you like.
Wow. Okay. Man, all right. I'm getting giddy here because I'll tell you this: before I ever became a therapist, the lack of confidence was probably the thing that held me back the most. And I even knew that like I don't feel confident. I don't think I come across confident. I don't know if I come across confident now, but I feel more confident internally. And for me, it's become more of a faith kind of thing. Like you said, I don't know how the outcome is gonna deter. Well, I don't know how the outcome is gonna look, but I at least have been through enough other situations where I believe that it's probably going to work out okay.
Yeah, yeah,
But before that process, I didn't know how to build confidence. So,
yeah,
man, this
yeah.
this is helping me just as a person right now.
Great.
Loneliness is an epidemic of all ages, but especially with young adults. I was talking to somebody last night, a friend of mine, and he's in the type of a career where he's pretty isolated because he has a skill set that most people don't have. He has interests that a lot of people don't have, and he feels just disconnected from people that not only do people not really understand him and his makeup, but they don't swim in the same circles that he is, and
Yeah.
it's starting to have an effect on his confidence. But
Mm,
what I was trying to tell him is that you have internal traits that people do need and want, but I think a lot of times with loneliness, we hide and we choose to not be vulnerable. But I'm wondering, is there a connection between confidence and vulnerability? I don't know if that's ever come up for you.
well, you can have confidence in your internally directed confidence as well as external. In fact, to be confident about your own mind is probably a prerequisite for being confident in the external world. And so if you cannot, if you feel you can't really control what you pay attention to, or you can't control your emotions, it's difficult for you to be sure that you can do something in the external world. So you have to.
Mm,
There is a skill within the internal world of learning habits of confidence to say, well, look, I know I felt like this before. Um, I think I can do this. I think I can take steps to change that. Now,
mm,
loneliness is a particularly awful. It's a horrible state to feel cut off and lonely. But I mean, one of the best antidotes to sources of mini antidepressant and mini oxytocin, the bonding hormone for other people, is to do stuff for other people, is to help other people. So
mm,
one of the best antidotes to loneliness is to find a place to volunteer, find a place to
mm,
help. And we know that doing, even though you may not have much in common with the other people who are volunteering, we know that the human brain loves, we're a group species and loves joint action, joint intent, feeling you share a goal with someone bonds you to that person. So, some, so I would say to a lonely person, try and find um, somewhere that you can help other people, um,
mm,
kids or homeless or some, and it could be in your domain or it could be in some domain you're not involved in professionally,
mm,
and try it out and try it out and find some means, and being altruistic has profound effects on the brain as well. It's a mood enhancer, and takes also it takes your attention away from the internal world, because too much
mm,
attention to the internal world can be handicapping, and makes you pay
mhm.
attention to people who are suffering probably much greater than what you're noticing in yourself, and that can really be a very powerful antidote to loneliness. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I wonder, does that help? Obviously, volunteering, being altruistic, it helps you figure out your purpose because it helps you see that,
Yeah.
okay, this story isn't just about me. Do
Exactly.
how are purpose and identity connected to confidence as well, or are they pretty
Well,
much separate?
absolutely. Yeah. In some senses, that's the root. It's very easy to be superficially to be confident for achieving goals in the world. That's very easy. But particularly in our interactions with other people, the greatest source of stress is the fear of negative evaluation of other people. We know that from research. That's the great other people are the greatest source of stress, and we fear that other people won't like us or will reject us. This is a primeval, primitive, evolved fear because from being expelled from the group. The great sources of confidence is your values.
Hmm,
And if basically our self-esteem is rooted on our values as a person. And self-esteem is essentially a psychological mechanism to ward off the realization that we're going to die. This is called terror management theory. And so self-esteem is very vulnerable, if you like. And the great thing about and self-esteem is essentially who do we, what are we, what do we ground ourselves in? It's essentially our values. We have certain things that matter to us that are our core values. It could be family, it
hmm,
could be integrity, it could be religious. Um, and the evidence is that if we just take a few minutes to, and this is the work of the psychologist Desi and Ryan, called if we take some time to just affirm what our values are, and what they mean to us, uh, we then develop a kind of ego strength. It means we're less likely to be defensive if we're criticized, and
hmm,
that that bears on confidence because it helps us deal with anxiety. For instance, if we're doing something we're not sure we can do, then one of the fears there is that um, I'll look like a fool or I'll be seen as a failure. Um, these fears lose some of their sting if you've affirmed your values. And of course, your values are the source of your purpose, to go back to your first question. And of course, your purpose and your values are, at the core of your identity. Yeah.
hmm. So somebody would, let's take somebody who might hear that and say, I don't even know how to start finding my values or even ranking them. What are there steps they can take?
Well, if just look up self affirmation. It was actually developed by Steele, Black American psychologist in Stanford. He developed self affirmation theory, and then Desi and Ryan in Rochester, they developed this method called self affirmation, which basically, if you look it up, you can get a list of 50, 60 values and just circle the top five that apply to you, and then think about them and write a few sentences about what they mean to you and why you hold to them. And that grounds people. That grounds people, and it gives them a base on which to tolerate anxiety and take action in spite of that
Mm.
anxiety.
What do you do with someone who has experienced a whole lot of failure? Maybe they have a clear sense of values and purpose, but they've just either been through failure or so much rejection that they seem just debilitated by it. How do you help somebody in that situation?
Well, um, obviously that's very tough. Repeated failures can really sap your belief, your confidence that you can do something. The critical thing is realizing that the present is not determined by the past. That
Mm,
every moment is a new moment, and there is nothing inevitable about the
mm,
past. The fact that you failed or been rejected 20 times does not mean that this time you'll fail or be rejected. And therefore, it's about setting goals for yourself, small goals for yourself in whichever domain it is, that stretch you a little bit, that are not too hard and not too difficult, but they nevertheless stretch you. And if you do that successfully, you will gradually build up your goals, and you will be able to build on the winner effect to gradually increase your ability to harness the confidence and harness the winner effect. The greatest source of success is success. So you have to engineer small successes to get bigger ones.
Mm. Okay, so starting small, building on those, and
Yeah.
it grows from there. It seems like you're saying it without saying it, but you're talking about the ability of the brain to change. Am
Yes.
I hearing you right?
Well, you're absolutely right, Trey. That is at the heart of this is neuroplasticity. The fact that we only have 20,000 or so genes. Our genes are computationally incapable of determining all our behaviors. Our brains evolved for them to be plastic, that is, to be physically changed by our experiences and our learning. But we live in a medicalized world where we tend to accept diagnoses or accept categorizations of ourselves that tend to limit us because they're the antithesis of neuroplasticity. So the capacity for change is the preeminent feature of the brain, but we
Mm.
cut ourselves off from that. And that is probably the greatest obstacle to confidence, is when people buy into, as Carol Dweck calls it, a fixed theory of their mental or their emotions, their abilities. If they have a fixed theory, this is something I've inherited, this is something that was laid down very early that can be changed. If you have that belief, then you will not engage in the slow and painful process of relearning that learning to be more confident requires.
Mm. Right, culture. I'm thinking specifically young adults. For example, they'll see other people that have gotten rich by age 23, and they think somehow they're behind on that, and maybe that's just a lack of values that they haven't figured out their own yet, but I, there's so many people feel like I'm behind, that
Yeah,
I'm so far behind I can't catch up.
that's the trap of um, comparator, the trap of comparison and of competitive judgment. That's the ghastly world of the social media. If your criterion for whether you've been successful or not is in comparison to other people, you're on a hiding to nothing. There will
Mm,
always be someone, particularly in a globalized world now, in social media, there will always be someone smarter, richer, better looking, more skilled, more successful in objective terms than you. Comparison is the death of joy, and it's the death of well-being. You have to you have to learn to set authentic goals that are yours and yours alone, and to define success in terms of your progression against your goals, and forget other people, forget the comparisons, particularly when it comes to wealth or career success. You the essential skill here is becoming skilled at setting goals that are meaningful for you and getting the satisfaction and the winner effect of achieving them.
mm, man, now that is wisdom to end on right there. Man, Dr. Robertson, thank you so much for being a part of this today. This has been just a wealth of knowledge. I'd love to do it again soon.
Thank you very much, Trey. Lovely talking to you.
Hey, thanks so much for being here today. Before you go, would you hit that subscribe button so that future episodes come right to you? Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time.